The room goes silent the moment Caitlin Clark leans forward, eyes locked, jaw tight, knowing every word she's about to say will detonate across the league. Cameras roll. Jason Kelce shifts in his seat. Travis smirks, sensing the tension. This isn't just an interview anymore. This is Caitlin finally breaking. Finally choosing to speak after months of whispers, side eyes, and calculated silence that nearly crushed her career. For weeks, fans accused her of playing safe. Critics said she was protected. Rivals claimed she was manufactured hype. Sponsors watched nervously. The league smiled publicly while holding its breath privately. And now, on the biggest sports podcast stage imaginable, Caitlin doesn't dodge. She exhales and starts naming the pressure, the resentment, the quiet hostility that followed her everywhere she went. She talks about locker rooms going cold, about veterans who stopped passing the ball, about social media exploding every time she scored and turning vicious when she didn't. Jason's face hardens. Travis leans in closer. This is no PR script. This is frustration spilling out raw and uncontrolled. She admits she almost walked away, that the weight of expectations made her feel trapped inside her own success, that the league loves the spotlight until it burns too hot. The words hit harder with every sentence, shaking narratives fans thought were untouchable. Then Caitlin pauses, swallows, and says there's one moment she hasn't told anyone yet, a moment that changed everything. The cameras zoom in as the room braces for impact. Forever. Maybe. Long before the microphones, before the Kelce studio lights and the viral clips looping across every phone, Caitlin Clark learned what it meant to carry noise on her shoulders. Not cheers. Noise. The kind that creeps into your head late at night and asks whether you earned any of this, or if it was handed to you just to watch you fall harder. From the moment she became must-watch television, the attention never felt clean. It felt sharp. Every record she shattered came with a counterpunch. Every sold-out arena came with whispers that she was being pushed, protected, polished for a story the league desperately needed. At Iowa, she could feel it building. Opponents played her like she was a personal insult. Defenders fouled harder. Coaches designed entire schemes just to humble her. Fans screamed praise and hate in the same breath. When she smiled, they said she was cocky. When she stayed quiet, they said she was fake. She learned early that silence could be weaponized against her just as easily as words. The jump to the WNBA didn't soften any of it. It multiplied everything. Veterans who had fought for scraps of attention suddenly watched the spotlight snap to a rookie. Some welcomed her. Others saw her as a threat to the balance they had bled for. Caitlin felt the temperature change the moment she walked into her first pro locker room. Conversations stopped when she entered. Laughter faded. Eyes measured her like a variable that could ruin everything. Social media didn't help. Every missed shot trended. Every bad game became proof she was overrated. Every good game became evidence she was favored. She scrolled late at night, reading posts questioning her toughness, her character, her place. Angel Reese's name popped up constantly, comparisons weaponized by fans who needed sides. Paige Buecher's was dragged into debates she never asked for. Even Kelce Mitchell's performances were twisted into arguments about who deserved what. Caitlin watched as the league she dreamed of joining turned into a pressure cooker where success meant isolation. Behind the scenes, sponsorship meetings felt just as heavy. Smiles were wide, but expectations were wider. Be yourself, but not too much. Speak up, but don't rock the boat. Sell confidence, not controversy. She learned quickly that one wrong sentence could cost millions, not just for her, but for the league narrative being carefully curated around her rise. There were nights she sat alone in hotel rooms after games, phone face down, hands shaking from adrenaline and exhaustion. She replayed moments where a teammate didn't pass, where a bench reaction felt cold, where a coach's silence said more than words ever could. She wondered if everyone secretly wanted her to fail, just enough to feel justified. The league offices praised growth publicly, while privately tracking every reaction she triggered. Kathy Engelbert spoke about momentum, but Caitlin felt like the momentum was strapped to her back, whether she wanted it or not. Team USA conversations buzzed in the background, adding another layer of scrutiny. Was she ready? Was she marketable enough? Was she too much? Through it all, Caitlin tried to stay disciplined. She trained harder. She smiled on cue. She answered questions without revealing how lonely it felt to be the center of gravity in a sport still fighting for respect. She watched other players absorb the fallout of being outspoken and learned to swallow her own frustrations. But swallowing doesn't erase pressure. It just compresses it. By the time the Kelce interview was booked, she was already cracked. Not broken. Cracked. The interview wasn't planned as a confession. It was supposed to be light, controlled, safe. Yet sitting there, with Jason's direct questions and Travis's knowing looks, something inside her shifted. The past years weren't distant memories anymore. They were right there in her chest, demanding air. She realized silence had protected everyone except her. And as she looked into the cameras, she knew the story people thought they understood was incomplete. There was resentment she hadn't named. There were moments of betrayal she hadn't acknowledged. And there was one decision made quietly months ago that connected everything and threatened to change how fans saw the league forever. Her hands tightened together as that memory surfaced, the one she promised herself she'd never say out loud. And the closer she got to it, the more she understood that once it was spoken, there would be no turning back. The moment Jason Kelce leaned forward and asked the question everyone danced around but never dared to say out loud, the air inside the studio changed. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't disrespectful. It was calm, almost too calm, and that's what made Caitlin Clark's chest tighten. Because calm questions have sharp edges when they hit truths you've buried to survive. Travis glanced at her, half smiling, half serious, like he already knew the answer but wanted to see if she'd finally say it herself. Caitlin laughed at first. A soft laugh. The practice kind. But it didn't land. The silence stretched. Cameras rolled. Millions would see this later, but in that moment, it felt like it was just the three of them and years of unspoken tension pressing down on her shoulders. Jason asked again, this time slower. About the pressure. About the expectations. About whether she ever felt like the league needed her to be something specific instead of just letting her play. Her smile faded. And that was the first crack fans would rewind 1,000 times. She didn't attack anyone. She didn't name villains. She simply said, there's a version of me people want. And there's the one who actually shows up every day. The room went still. Travis raised his eyebrows. Jason nodded, sensing blood in the water. Caitlin took a breath that sounded heavier than it should have been. Then she said it. And sometimes those two versions aren't allowed to exist at the same time. That sentence detonated online within minutes of the clip dropping. But the real shock came when Jason pushed further, asking if she felt protected or targeted by the league's narrative machine. Caitlin hesitated, eyes flicking down for half a second. That hesitation spoke louder than any rant ever could. She admitted that doors opened fast, but walls closed just as quickly. That attention came with invisible rules. That being marketable sometimes meant being manageable. Fans exploded. Some heard honesty. Others heard entitlement. Veterans subtweeted within minutes. Former players went live, dissecting every word. Angel Reese's name trended again, dragged into a debate Caitlin never mentioned. Paige Bucher's fans jumped in defensively. Kelce Mitchell supporters questioned whether Caitlin was subtly positioning herself above teammates. The chaos spread like wildfire. Then came the twist no one expected. Jason, almost casually, mentioned a conversation he'd had off mic with someone deeply connected to the league. Caitlin's head snapped up. Travis leaned back, suddenly alert. Jason clarified that it was about how certain media narratives were encouraged, not organically grown. Caitlin froze. The cameras caught it. That wasn't acting. That was recognition. She didn't confirm it outright. She didn't have to. She simply said, yeah, I've heard those conversations too. That was it. That was the moment. Because in that single sentence, Caitlin implied something fans had speculated about but never had a star acknowledge. That the stories shaping the WNBA's new era weren't accidental. That rivalries were amplified. That silence was rewarded. That speaking out had consequences no one warned you about until it was too late. The league offices reportedly panicked within hours. Calls were made. PR teams scrambled. Executives reassured sponsors that Caitlin hadn't crossed a line. But players heard something different. They heard validation. Or betrayal. Depending on which side of the spotlight they stood. Locker rooms buzzed. Some players felt exposed. Others felt finally seen. A veteran reportedly told a teammate, "She just said what we get punished for." Another snapped back. Easy to say when the cameras love you. Caitlin felt it immediately on the court. The energy shifted. Passes came later. Defensive help arrived slower. Not from everyone, but enough to notice. She played through it, but the tension was thick, almost visible. Commentators tiptoed around it, using phrases like intensity and competitive fire, while fans dissected body language frame by frame. Social media turned brutal. Clips were cut out of context. Headlines screamed that Caitlin had exposed the league, while others accused her of playing victim. Stephen A. Smith weighed in, praising her honesty but warning about the cost. Former stars argued on panels, some defending her courage, others saying she should have kept it internal. Behind closed doors, Caitlin was called into meetings she hadn't requested. Friendly voices reminded her of timing, of growth, of the bigger picture. No one threatened her. They didn't have to. The message was clear. Narratives only work when everyone sticks to the script. But the script was already tearing. Because what fans didn't know yet, what hadn't leaked, what Caitlin hadn't said on camera, was that the Kelce interview wasn't her first attempt to speak up. Months earlier, she'd pushed back privately against a media framing she felt was unfair to another player. That pushback didn't go unnoticed. Opportunities cooled. Messaging shifted. And she realized then that honesty had a price tag. Now, after the interview, that price was being calculated in real time. The twist wasn't just that Caitlin spoke. It was that she did it knowing exactly what would follow. She didn't stumble into controversy. She stepped into it with her eyes open. And as the league tried to contain the fallout, a deeper question began spreading through fan bases and locker rooms alike. If Caitlin Clark, with all her leverage, felt boxed in, what did that mean for everyone else? And just as that question reached a boiling point, a leaked internal memo began circulating among reporters. One that referenced the interview directly and hinted at a coming realignment of media strategy. The story wasn't over. It was just getting dangerous. The leaked memo didn't explode all at once. It crept. Screenshots appeared in private group chats first, half-blurred, watermarked, shared with warnings like "don't repost and this will get taken down." Within an hour, it was everywhere. The language was clinical, corporate, cold. But the implications were nuclear. It referenced post-interview narrative stabilization, asset protection, and most chilling of all, a line about recentering public focus away from singular player-driven discourse. Everyone knew exactly what that meant. Caitlin found out the same way fans did. Her phone vibrating nonstop, teammates staring at her a little too long during shoot-around, the air thick with something unspoken. No one accused her of anything. No one had to. The memo alone made it clear. The league hadn't just heard her. It had responded. And the response wasn't silence. It was escalation. Suddenly, headlines shifted. Stories praising parity, teamwork, and the beauty of collective growth flooded feeds. Individual spotlights dimmed. Analysts who had spent months dissecting Caitlin's every move pivoted overnight. Her name was still mentioned, but flatter, safer, stripped of edge. It wasn't punishment on paper. It was erasure by dilution. Then came the whispers that cut deeper. Anonymous quotes surfaced from league insiders, suggesting Caitlin's comments had created unnecessary tension. A former player implied she'd been guided poorly. Another hinted she was learning the politics the hard way. None of it was traceable. All of it landed. In the locker room, the pressure snapped into something sharper. A teammate finally said it out loud. "They think you went rogue." Caitlin didn't respond. She couldn't. Because the worst part wasn't the backlash. It was realizing how fast the system closed ranks once someone stepped even slightly out of line. The second twist hit when a major sponsor quietly paused a campaign built around her image. No announcement. No explanation. Just a scheduling adjustment. Her agent called it temporary. Caitlin heard it as a message. Say less. Be smaller. Remember the balance. Fans noticed. They always do. Hashtags shifted from celebration to suspicion. Some accused the league of muting its biggest star. Others accused Caitlin of biting the hand that fed her. The comment sections turned vicious, splitting into camps that didn't even feel like they were watching the same sport anymore. Every play she made was overanalyzed. Every miss was weaponized. Every interview question felt loaded. Then Angel Reese broke her silence, not directly about Caitlin, but about selective accountability and who gets grace when they speak. It was vague enough to deny, sharp enough to ignite. Paige Buchers liked the post. Screenshots flew. Think pieces followed. The narrative fractured again. Behind the scenes, meetings stacked up. Caitlin was advised to clarify, to soften, to add context. She listened, nodded, thanked everyone, and said no. Not loudly, not defiantly, just firmly. She'd already said what she meant. Repeating it differently wouldn't make it truer. That decision changed everything. Because within days, another leak surfaced, this one not a memo, but a recorded call. Distorted, anonymous, but unmistakably real. It featured voices discussing how certain rivalries drive engagement and how some players handle the heat better than others. One voice joked about teaching lessons without teaching lessons. The internet detonated. The league denied authenticity. Legal threats followed. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. Players started talking, to each other, to trusted reporters, to people they'd never trusted before. The fear shifted. It wasn't just about Caitlin anymore. It was about control. Caitlin sat alone that night, scrolling past headlines she never asked for, realizing the second twist wasn't the memo or the sponsor or even the call. It was the truth settling in. She hadn't broken the system. She'd exposed how fragile it really was. And as the league scrambled to regain its grip, one final question loomed. Because someone else was preparing to speak next, and this time, they had nothing to lose. The fallout didn't arrive like a wave. It came like shrapnel, fast, jagged, impossible to dodge. Morning shows opened with Caitlin's name in the cheerin', but not the way she'd imagined as a kid. Not highlights. Not records. Just tension. Divided league. Star under fire. Power struggle behind the scenes. Every word felt heavier than the last. Fans picked sides with frightening speed. Arenas turned unpredictable. One night, thunderous chants drowned out the opposing bench. The next, a chorus of boos hit before Caitlin even touched the ball. Social media became a battlefield. Slow-motion clips dissected like evidence. Body language turned into conspiracy. Silence interpreted as guilt. The same people who begged her to speak were now furious she didn't say more. Players felt it too. Locker rooms across the league went quiet in ways that had nothing to do with scouting reports. Some teammates stood closer to Caitlin than ever, defiant, protective, angry on her behalf. Others grew distant, careful, weighing every association like a risk assessment. No one wanted to be the next name trending for the wrong reason. Angel Reese's mentions exploded. Support poured in, then backlash, then think pieces about rivalry, race, power, and who gets to be bold without consequence. Paige Buchers was dragged into it for a single like. Kelce Mitchell fielded questions she never asked for. Aaliyah Boston was praised for staying neutral, as if neutrality wasn't its own statement. The league felt less like a family and more like a courtroom. Kathy Engelbert released a statement that said everything and nothing. Words like unity, respect, and ongoing dialogue floated without anchors. It calmed sponsors. It enraged fans. It satisfied no one who actually mattered. Commentators argued whether the league was protecting itself or silencing its stars. Stephen A. Smith went on air and nearly combusted, calling it the messiest win the WNBA's ever had, his voice cracking between outrage and awe. Caitlin tried to focus on basketball. She really did. But every game felt like walking through smoke. Reporters asked softer questions with sharper undertones. Cameras lingered a second too long when she sat on the bench. Even victories felt strange, celebrated loudly, then immediately questioned. Was she being propped up? Or pushed aside? The narrative changed by the hour. Then came the open letters. Former players wrote about sacrifice and survival. Current players hinted at pressure they'd never named before. Fans wrote essays, threads, manifestos. Some thanked Caitlin for saying what they believed others were afraid to admit. Others accused her of centering herself in a league built on collective struggle. Both sides claimed to be defending the future. The emotional cost became impossible to hide. Caitlin's voice sounded thinner in post-game scrums. Her smile arrived later, left sooner. She slept less, trusted fewer people. Every text felt like it might be a screenshot someday. The joy that once poured out of her game now had to fight its way through armor. And still the league played on. Ratings spiked. Engagement soared. Every controversy clip went viral. The irony wasn't lost on anyone paying attention. The chaos was profitable. The tension was marketable. The pain was content. That realization broke something open. Because as the public argued and the league posture shifted and the players braced themselves, a single reporter tweeted 3 words that froze everything. More audio coming. No context. No source. Just a promise. Caitlin saw it seconds after it posted. Her phone buzzed again. And this time, the fear wasn't about what people would say about her. It was about what they were finally ready to hear. Silence became the loudest sound in the room the moment the full clip dropped. Not a leak this time. Not a rumor stitched together by speculation. It was Caitlin Clark's own voice, steady but razor-edged, answering a question no one expected her to touch. The Kelce brothers leaned back in their chairs, suddenly aware they were sitting inside something much bigger than a podcast moment. The camera caught Caitlin's eyes before the words landed, focused, tired, and done pretending this was just basketball. She didn't raise her voice. That's what terrified people. She talked about pressure first, about how the league loves to sell growth but panics when growth speaks back, about being told to stay humble while carrying ratings, tickets, and expectations no rookie in WNBA history had ever been forced to shoulder alone. She talked about how silence is often mistaken for compliance, and how every time she chose not to respond, someone else decided what her silence meant. Then she said the sentence that split everything open. There are conversations happening behind closed doors that fans would never believe. The internet detonated before she even finished her thought. Clips cut. Headlines raced. Some called her brave. Others called her reckless. But Caitlin didn't stop. She explained how narratives are curated, how certain players are protected from scrutiny while others are thrown into it like shields. She didn't name names, but she didn't have to. The pauses did that for her. The way Travis Kelce stopped smiling did that for her. The way Jason swallowed hard before asking the next question did that for her. She described meetings that felt less like collaboration and more like warnings. Branding conversations that came with unspoken conditions. Praise followed by quiet corrections. This is how it's always been, she was told. Don't be the one who breaks it. Her honesty wasn't explosive, it was surgical. And that made it worse. Within minutes, current players were texting each other in panic. Some relieved she finally said it. Others furious she said it out loud. Agents scrambled. PR teams drafted statements they hoped they wouldn't have to release. Kathy Engelbert's office went dark. No comments. No clarifications. Just silence that felt intentional now. Then the real twist surfaced. A former league executive, anonymous but verified, confirmed that Caitlin wasn't exaggerating. That internal discussions about containment, not competition, had been happening for over a year. That the fear wasn't Caitlin failing. It was her becoming bigger than the systems built to manage her. Screenshots followed. Not incriminating enough to be illegal. Just enough to be undeniable. That's when the tone shifted. Sponsors paused campaigns, not to drop Caitlin, but to wait. To see who would blink first. Fans flooded arenas with signs that didn't cheer teams, but demanded answers. Teammates stopped dodging questions. Angel Reese posted a single line. Truth has layers. Paige Buchers reposted the clip without comment. That silence spoke volumes. Caitlin watched it all unfold from her apartment, phone face down on the table, knowing she'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She hadn't attacked anyone. She hadn't accused. She'd simply told the truth as she lived it. And somehow, that felt more dangerous than any insult ever could. The league finally responded, late, cautious, and cold. A statement promising internal review and open dialogue. No apologies. No denials. Just control. Analysts tore it apart within minutes. Stephen A. Smith called it corporate damage control dressed up as unity, his voice shaking with something between anger and awe. But the final moment came quietly. At the end of the episode, as the outro music started to play, Caitlin leaned back toward the mic and said one last thing, almost like an afterthought. This isn't over. It's just finally visible. The clip didn't trend at first. It didn't need to, because hours later, a producer confirmed that the interview wasn't the only conversation Caitlin had recorded that week. And somewhere, on a hard drive no one could track yet, there was more. If you're still watching right now, it means this story hit a nerve. And that's exactly why it matters. What Caitlin Clark said wasn't just another viral soundbite or podcast headline. It was a crack in a wall the WNBA has spent years pretending didn't exist. And the reason this moment feels so heavy is because it puts the power back where it's always belonged, with the fans who refuse to look away. This isn't about picking sides. It's about asking the questions that keep getting buried. Why does honesty feel dangerous in a league built on strength? Why does transparency trigger panic instead of progress? And why does it take a generational star sitting across from two NFL legends for the truth to finally feel undeniable? Right now, the league is watching the reaction. Every comment, every share, every debate tells them whether this moment fades or forces change. Silence is the easiest option. Engagement is the loudest statement. And history shows that when fans speak together, Leagues listen whether they want to or not. So don't just scroll past this. If you believe Caitlin Clark crossed a line that needed to be crossed, say it. If you think the league owes its players more honesty, more protection, and more respect, make that impossible to ignore. Drop your thoughts below. Were her words brave or overdue? Did this interview expose growth pains or something far deeper? And most importantly, subscribe if you want the full story as it unfolds, because this is not the end. More reactions are coming. More voices are stepping forward. And the next move won't come from a press release. It'll come from pressure. The WNBA is standing at a crossroads right now. One path leads back to silence, controlled narratives, and missed opportunities. The other leads straight into uncomfortable truth and real change. Which direction it goes depends on how loud this moment becomes. Because Caitlin Clark didn't just break her silence. She challenged everyone else to decide whether they're finally ready to listen.